We're going to go ahead and go over week 33 for our spiral. Make sure that you click the accurate answers before submitting. Now for Monday, a race car driver is trying to decrease his lap times by at least 8%. Select whether the driver received that goal for each description of a lap. So we are going to mark either true or false. The original time was 2.5 minutes, and the new time is 2 minutes. The second one, the original time was 4 minutes, and the new time is 3. The original time for the third one is 5.25 minutes, and the new time would be 5 minutes. And finally, for the fourth, the original time was 3 minutes, and the new time is 3.15 minutes. So we need to make sure that we find out each individual answer and check whether it is true in the statement or is it false. Go ahead and select your answers after you have written out all your work. Now, for the first one, we know the answer is true because if we go to subtract 2.5 minus 2, we end up with 0.5. So 0.5 divided by the original time, which is 2.5, that gives me an answer of 0.20, which is 20%. So there is a 20% decrease because we're making sure it decreased. And you would do the same thing for the second one. So 4 minutes minus 3, you get 1 minute difference. 1 divided by 4, we know is 25, so 25% difference, decrease. Now the next one, 5.25 minus 5, well, it decreased, but it didn't decrease enough. When we take the 5.25 minus 5 and get 0.25, and we divide by the original 5.25, it only gives us about a 4%. So it's not a big enough change. And then the last one, the original time is 3 minutes, and the new time is 3.15 minutes. We know it did not decrease, it increased, so therefore automatically being false. Now for Tuesday's problem, Eric took out $85,000 in student loans with a simple interest rate of 7.5%. He takes 10 years to repay the loans. How much will Eric pay in all? Explain how you solved the problem. So now in this case, if Eric took out that $85,000, we know that's the principal. So P is $85,000. T is in years, so 10 years. And R is the rate, which is 7.5%. And we must use the formula I equals P times the rate times time. Now the biggest hint is to remember to change our percentage into a decimal. So 7.5% must be changed into a decimal by moving it 2 places to the right. So 0.075. Now go ahead and complete the problem and then explain how you would solve it. Alright, so once you completed your answer, you should have multiplied all 3 values, and you end up with an interest of $63,750. That's the interest. But then the question's asking you, how much will Eric pay in all? So you have to add it to the original principal, which is the $85,000. So once we add the $85,000, then we end up with a total of $148,750. And an explanation on how to solve the problem is walking through the problem step by step. So make sure you say what formula to use, you describe which each part of the value that we're using, and then step by step how you would multiply, change the percent to a decimal, and then at the very end, of course, add the two interests and the original principal together to get a total. Alright, so now on Wednesday, in the figure below, we have angle OLN and angle PLR are vertical angles. So vertical angles are angles that are going to be across from each other, and they create almost like a V shape. So we notice OLN, and then we notice PLR. Select the values to complete the equation to find the measure of angle MLO. So we're going to use the information over on the right where the different angles that they provide us with. What is the measure of angle MLO? So make sure you use the given information that we see in the original problem, and we have to substitute in some of these values. Alright, what we do know is that angle PLR is 102 degrees. So we see that right here. So that's going to be our total when we create our equation. Then we know that angle MLN is 60 degrees. So that's going to be the constant in the equation. And then X is what we're looking for. So we notice that MLN is where X is. So that's what we're looking. So in the end, it's a one-step equation. We subtract 102 minus 60, and we're left over with 32 degrees. So measure angle MLO is 32 degrees. Now for Thursday's question. A straight railroad track crosses two parallel streets and forms the non-perpendicular angles shown in the diagram. Select whether each statement is true or false. So our first statement, angles 1 and 3 are complementary angles, so we have to look over to the right-hand side in our diagram. Number 2, when measure of angle 8 is 105 degrees, measure of angle 2 is 75 degrees. For the third one, measure of angle 1 is equal to measure of angle 8. Our fourth one, the sum of the measures of angles 5, 6, and 7 is 270 degrees. And our last one, the sum of the measures of all 8 angles is 720 degrees. So basically where I started was with question number 2. So if I were to label them as measure angle 8 is 105 degrees, I know that measure angle 2 is 75 degrees. So when we're looking at question 1, angle 1 and angle 3 are complementary of each other. That is a false statement, and we know it's false because complementary means the two angles have to add to be 90 degrees. So if you look at it, then I know that angle 1 and angle 3, we have an obtuse and an acute angle, and that actually creates a supplementary angle. And then when measure angle 8 is 105 degrees, then I know that measure angle 2 would be 75 degrees because we have an obtuse angle and we have our acute, and when you add them together, that should be a total of 180 degrees. So that is a true statement. Then measure angle 1 equals measure angle 8. that is also a true statement. They are exterior angles, so we know that they are going to be paired up, exterior alternate angles. And then for the fourth one, the sum of the measures of angle 5, angle 6, and 7. So angle 5 would be 105, angle 6 is 75, and then angle 7 is also 75. So once I add all that up, it actually gives me 255. So that statement would be false. And finally, the sum of the measures of all angles, that would be adding all of them together. And what that would mean is if I were to add angle 1, 2, 3, and 4 together, that should be 360 degrees. So if I add all of them, and I do, and I get 360 degrees, that means this also would be 360 degrees. So I have 360 plus 360, and that is a total of 720 degrees. So that is a true statement. So you should have false, true, true, false, true.